So I'm FIIFI Anaman. I was Christian with a Christian name, but I'm not going to mention
it. I asked you to mention your name because, like, those of us that have watched you on TV, you have an interesting way of.
Yeah, so the story goes like when I was on Questa TV, I used to host Sports Extra. I started, I think, in March 2018, and I was green on TV. Of course, I had done video productions on the internet on Pulse Ghana, but I'd really never done TV hosting. So I was a bit nervous when I went on TV the first time. So I would say, welcome to Sports Extra, my name is FIIFI Anaman, that kind of thing. I was really nervous. And there was this lady at MCR, the person who was like, you need to calm down, you need to relax and, talk your way through it. So when I started, I was like, welcome to Sports Extra. My name is FIIFI Anaman. Just to relax. And then it stuck because a lot of people saw that it was something that could become my thing, right? And they loved it. So I continued mentioning my name as FIIFI Anaman. Yeah, I enjoyed doing that because, it brought a bit of, a jovial feel to the show.
Yeah, as a viewer, I also did. Like, whenever you welcome, my name is, then you all mention it. It was fun, it was great. And you talked about Questa, but before that, let me get to know you.
Okay, so I was born in Kumasi on the last day of December, sometime in the 90s, early 90s. So I grew up in Kumasi from a family of 4 siblings, myself being the 4th one, the last one. I have an elder brother, another elder brother, and an elder sister. My dad was a lecturer. My mom was a teacher. They are both retired. So I grew up in Kumasi, but I had to come to Accra because of Achimota School, which was my secondary school, my senior high school. But before then, I'd attended all my school. I've actually schooled through the whole of the structure of schools at KNUST. So I did nursery, I did primary school, I did JHS at KNUST. So I passed my BEC and I came to Accra to Achimota School. I did 4 years at Achimota School and then I proceeded to the University of Ghana, Legon for another 4 years. So I came to Accra in 2008. I guess it's going on 15 years. So yes, I've been in Accra ever since. So school, work, stuff like that.
How do you describe yourself now? Are you going to describe yourself as a retired journalist? A writer? Like, how do you describe yourself?
I think primarily I'm a writer, primarily, the basic level. But now I can call myself an author, which I'm very proud of because since I was a child, look, I used to write very, very much as a child. When I was like 9, 10, it continued when I was in JHS. I used to write fiction a lot. Of course, it wasn't as good because it was very infantile, very unrealistic. And so I used to write a lot. And when I realized in 2012 that I had a passion for writing and I had a passion for football. So what I did was I combined both. So I think you can describe me, or I can describe myself as a journalist first of all, even though I'm not a trained journalist. I can describe myself as a writer because that's what I primarily do. I can describe myself as a broadcaster or a sportscaster because I've done it before. And I can describe myself as an author because I just authored a book. I co-authored the book.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the book and other things that you've done. But I was asking that because I just wanted to get to know what you are doing and whether you studied that in the university. Because you said, what did you study in the University of Ghana?
So I studied political science, philosophy, and archaeology. What happened was I couldn't deal with philosophy, so I dropped it in level 100 going on to 200. And then I minored in archaeology and majored in political science. So it took 4 years, 2012, 2016. Yeah.
I see. So after university, at what point did you develop the interest in talking about, let's say, writing about sports and maybe football?
So this is an interesting one. I started writing about football before university. So you see that short window between SHS and university, right? I think it's a few months.
Yeah, when you're
waiting for a result. That was when I saw a gap. So I decided, oh, FIIFI, you can write. A lot of people say you can write. Oh, FIIFI, you love football. So the natural thing is to combine both. So I started a blog, I started writing. And I remember one of the first articles I did was on Jose Mourinho because he was my favorite coach. I did some articles on the Hungarian team of the 50s. I did an article on Steven Gerrard, Daniel Agger. There's a few people because I was a Liverpool fan. Still am a Liverpool fan. And so I did that, and a lot of people said, "FIIFI, you can write. Why don't you write for like a major website?" I'm like, it's not that simple. So, but at the point I realized, okay, so I've reached a point where a lot of people want to see my work on a major website. So what do I do? So I go online, I scout a few websites, and of course, go.com is one of the biggest. So what I do is, and mind you, by this time I've written for some blogs, right, football blogs online. So I'm thinking the next step would be to write for a major website. So I go online, I search for the contact of the editor for go.com Ghana, and I find it. So I cold mail him. I'm like, I'm FIIFI ANAMAN, I'm 18, I just finished Achimota school, and I have a passion for writing. I would really love to write for you pro bono and see how it develops from there. And thankfully, he was a really kind man. His name is Kent Mensah. I would always mention his name everywhere I go because Kent was like, he kick-started my career proper. And I remember how he replied the email. He said that I had what it took to become a fine football journalist. Those were his exact words, fine football journalist. I will never forget. When I saw the email, I was so happy, and I was jumping. I was in Kumasi, just jumping around, excited. That kind of thing.
Feeling,
yeah. So it was like a breakthrough for me. So the first article he told me to do was to write about the 5 Ghana Premier League players who deserve to play in Europe. And at that point, I was very obsessed with European football. I had lost touch with the local scene, and so I had to sort of do a lot of research. So I did it. I wrote the article, and that's where my career as a football writer started proper. So I think I got published for the first time in August 2012. It has been close to 11 years since then. Yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. I remember I wrote an article for go.com. It was titled "From Boko to Buenos Aires: The Story of Bayern Mahmoud." So it's basically about this guy called Bayern Mahmoud who stowed away from Ghana to Argentina, and he had become a football player for Boca Juniors. And so I found out about him online, and I interviewed him online, and I wrote like a long form. I gave it a long form treatment for go.com. And can you believe it was actually translated to so many languages across go.com's international platform? It was picked up from Ghana, yes. And yeah, that was one of the biggest moments of my career because like everybody was talking about the piece. Every single person online said, "Oh, this piece is really good," and stuff like that. And I was really proud of that particular piece because it sort of put my name out there as well. So go.com, I did a lot of features on the Ghana Premier League especially. And whilst I was at Go, this was in 2014 during World Cup season. There was a point where I received an email from the Daily Telegraph in the UK. It said, "Why don't you become a Ghana correspondent for the World Cup?" At this point, I'm like, wow, I'm going to write for a major website.
That's like 2 years.
Yes, 2 years into my craft. Yes, it was really, it was mental, if I could describe it like that. So yes, I did the Daily Telegraph. I think I did about 5 to 6 blogs, and each one of them paid well. Yes, remember, so I was working for go.com for free.
Really?
Yes, for most of the time, because they didn't have a budget for writers. So what happened was Kent would recruit all these budding writers, and all of us would agree to give our best to the website. And it was a really good model because even though you were not getting paid, you were getting a lot of experience and exposure, and it was really good for us. So in fact, my first paid job, and I'll come to the Telegraph story in a bit, was with allsports.com.gh. It was owned by Ringier Ghana Limited, the same owners of Pulse Ghana, right? That was my first paid job, and I was being paid 200 cedis to write blogs on the Ghana Premier League. So yes, I did that for a while, and then I burned out, right? I got really tired, I got fatigued, and I told management I couldn't continue. Mind you, at this point, I'm still in the university. This was 2013 thereabouts, so I'm in my first year, going on my second year. So I told the management I couldn't continue, so
that's,
I quit. All Sports.
Now Pulse, right?
Yeah, now Pulse. It used to be All Sport. That was their flagship product. Yes.
So
Ringier Ghana.
We're going to come to that part. Yeah. It means that you are part of the pioneers.
Yeah, right? So
the people that started
people that started all sports. So I wasn't actually there at the beginning, but I was part of, around the beginning. I'll describe it as such. Now it was Gary Al Smith and George Patrick Vidiako who hired me. In fact, it was Gary, right? So I'll tell the story. So I met Gary in 2012, right? I had been following him for a long time, he was like a hero of mine. So one time I texted him on Twitter, and he said he was coming to Kumasi for the Black Stars game against Lesotho, right, at the Babaya Stadium. He says, "Oh, we can meet before the game." So I was really excited. Gary Al Smith. I even thought he was a white man. I hadn't seen him before. He kept this anonymous profile online. Well, not anonymous in terms of his name, but in terms of his picture.
Okay.
Right. So I never knew how he looked like, who he was, until I met him just opposite the Babaya Sports Stadium, and I was really excited. He gave me a lot of advice, encouraged me, and stuff like that. We all went in to watch the game, and that was how my relationship with Gary started. So Gary, knowing that I was a blogger and everything, I was on go.com, recruited me for All Sports, where he used to do part-time as an editor. I did that for about 3 months, and then I quit because, like I said, I got really tired. I got fatigued. I was in school. I couldn't juggle both. And so the story was that they came back for me. They called me and said, "FIIFI, we need you back." So I'm like, I really am not sure if I can do this. So no, come over to the office. Let's have a conversation. So I go to the office, and because I don't want to do the job, I tell them, "You know what? Pay me 1,000 cedis."
Okay, like
because I know they won't pay. Because
pay.
At this point, I'm really young. I'm like barely in my early 20s. So I'm like, they won't pay you 1,000 cedis. So just mention 1,000 and let them think you're arrogant. They will let you go. So I mentioned that, and then they were like, "Yeah, so when can you start?" So I panicked. And then I said, "Okay, I need to go out and do some confirmation and deliberations with people close to me." So I went out and I called my mom. And I'm like, "Asemabo." Almost want me to make 1,000 cedis. So it's like, "Hey, Asemni." So I'm like, "Okay, let me go back in." I didn't tell my mom this, but I decided to go back in and say 1,200 or nothing, because I knew they wouldn't go up. They wouldn't go above 1,000. So I went back in, like, young guy. I'm like, "You know what? I want 1,200." They're like, "Okay, can you start on Monday?" So at this point, I'm like, "Yeah, this is actually happening." So I was a really young writer on that kind of salary at that point. That was ridiculous to say the least, because
that's like
2013. Yes.
That's
that was a lot of money then. So I was this young writer, and of course, a lot of people saw me as an up and coming writer, but they loved my style of writing, and I was encouraged to do more. I did a lot of features for All Sports, long form features. I did a lot of Ghana Premier League blogging. I just put in my all, because I knew that if I didn't perform, a lot of people would be like, "This young boy is being paid a lot of money, he's not doing anything." So I gave my all. In fact, at a point, I wasn't even going for lectures. I missed some interim assessment tests, IAs and stuff like that. I sold my bed on campus just so I could live out of campus and attend lectures from home, because I was always in stadia, I was in offices, I was interviewing people.
I was about coming to ask you that. How were you able to combine school and work? Because I also did literally similar.
It was difficult juggling, but it was really difficult. But my heart was with football journalism, and I didn't really like academics. I mean, since I was a child, I didn't really take to academics that much. So, and I was a very lazy student. I didn't used to. I don't remember a time where I sat down for at least 30 minutes to study. I'll do 15 minutes, and my span would just leave me, and I would do something else. So it's a miracle how I was able to go to JHS and SHS and uni. It was a miracle.
You are naturally intelligent. So
well, I don't think that's well. You see, I was very poor at math, for instance, very poor at science. And I remember when I was in SHS, I was so poor at math that I would fail at math at certain points. So everybody was concerned about Wasi. Is FIIFI going to fail math? If he fails math, he can't make it to the uni and stuff like that. So what I did was, I targeted the least grade in terms of passing, which was C6. I'm going to write math, I'm going to get a C6, I'm going to go to the university. That's what I did. I went in, answered questions that were going to get me a C6. Exactly. And I got my C6 and I got into Lagos. I was really excited about that. in Legon, again, I wasn't attending lectures. I was, yeah. So, and in the end, I graduated with a second class upper, which was miraculous. Trust me, for somebody who wasn't going for lectures, it was just a miracle. And because I wasn't doing well at all, so I think it was getting to level 300, 400 that I started doing well, because I put journalism on hold for a while and I decided to focus on my academics. So that's probably why. And so yes, all sports. So I did all sports for a while, and I think I quit again in 2014 because I couldn't handle the responsibility of being paid that amount of money and having a lot of expectations, put on my shoulders.
Really?
It felt burdensome.
I see.
Yes, I couldn't handle it. Yes, like this young writer, everybody's mentioning your name. So this at a point, right? Godfrey Akoto at a point joined us. He became my editor, and he mentored me as well. He taught me a lot of stuff. Godfrey was the one who put me on video hosting duties for his show. So the story is that he used to host a show called Game Plan, and one time he was late for his show. He told me he was at a restaurant having a meeting, so I should sit in for him. And so I was really scared, but I ended up doing it. And later I found out that he wasn't actually at a restaurant having a meeting. He just wanted me to sit in for him, and he wanted to test my video hosting skills. So that was my introduction to something related to TV. So Godfrey did a lot for me. And one of my highlights at Go was to do that Bayern Mahmoud piece that I said was translated across Go.com's platform. Now at All Sports, one of the articles that I wrote, which I was really proud of, was on former President J. Kufuor. So I interviewed him on football, and I wrote a long form piece on him, and I really loved that as well. So I quit All Sports at a point because I wanted to concentrate on school and such. But after school, after Legon, I went back to All Sports for my national service. And yeah, so
is it that you were that good that like you can say I'm going, I'll come back, then they will
No, not really. So you see, I went back because they knew me, which was a good thing. So yes, I went back to Pulse, and Akoto was there. So I thought that because I had been there before and I was just hot shot, I was being paid a lot of money, it was going to be a natural progression. It's like, FIIFI was there, he was a staff writer, and he's coming back, so let's restore him to his former position. But Akoto insisted that I was treated as a national service person. I'll never forget this. I didn't understand it as well, because it's like, I've come back, Charlie, let's continue. So I was like, no, this guy is a university graduate. He just finished university. He's now doing this national service. Treat him as a service person. So I was taking the normal service allowance, and I remember it was a very interesting experience. So that was when I grew my love for long form writing, because I realized I wasn't prolific in terms of story writing, and I developed a love for feature writing. And feature writing for long form takes a lot of time, a lot of research. One of my earliest long form pieces was on Abeku Jackson and the swimmer. And I wrote a couple of other long form pieces. I remember I did a piece on Kwame Nkrumah and Real Madrid. I did a piece on the 1982 triumph of the Black Stars in Libya. I did a piece on a man called Emmanuel Christian Bryant, who was captain of the Gold Coast 11 from 1951 to 1958. Yes, so yeah, I did long form at Pulse for a year as a service person, and I did some video as well.
At what point did you write the article about the Black Stars that won you the international award?
When was it? No, it wasn't service. So when I was writing for Pulse, All Sports, and later Pulse, I had this ambition, because I thought a lot of people were saying that my writing was up there. So like I said, ambitious young FIIFI. So I was like, why don't I apply for awards like the CNN Journalist Award, and then this was later, the Sport Media Pearl Award. It was like the inaugural edition, organized by the International Sports Press Association, the IPS. So I first applied for the CNN Africa Journalist Awards in 2014. I didn't make it. I remember I was like, no, I'll go. I told my brother that the next time I apply for this awards, I'm going to make it. It was, Charlie, this is like the topmost level for African journalists. You think you small boy, you can get there. I'm like, you wait. So the next year, I made it. I remember the story very well. So I was in Legon Hall. I was just eating my banku. And then, at the hall restaurant. And then I received this call from a man called Peter Kitson. He says, FIIFI, do you have time to talk? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to tell you something, but you have to keep it under wraps for a while. I'm like, yeah. It's like, I'm Peter Kisson. I'm calling from CNN, and we want to congratulate you on being nominated for the CNN Africa Journalist Award. I'm like, what? So I was so excited. I stopped eating the banku there, and then I rushed to my room. I was excited, jumping about. Yeah, so that happened. I went to Nairobi for the awards. I didn't win the sports reporting category award. It went to my colleague Arukaino Omokoro, very, very brilliant journalist. He wrote on Stadia, which had been abandoned in Nigeria.
So what piece
I
did
wrote
you-
on the disability team. Is it Black Challenge? Right, the national. I wouldn't say crippled, but most of them couldn't walk.
Yeah.
So that's the national team for disabled sportsmen. So football, in terms of football. So I wrote an article on them called Ghana's Neglected Football Stars. So that's what earned me the CNN nomination. And a few months after that, I applied for the Sport Media Pearl Award, the very first edition, with an article that I had written on the Black Stars shortly before I left All Sport. So this was an article after they played Uganda, and I was really emotional about it because I felt that they had returned from the World Cup where they had messed us up, they had disgraced us, and these people were just, still messing up. So I wrote this very emotional article on the Black Stars. And to be honest, I applied with the Ghana's Neglected Football Stars, and I felt Ghana's Neglected Football Stars was a long form piece. It was more emotional in terms of the content than the short opinion piece that I had done on the Black Stars. So I thought Ghana's Neglected Football Stars will make it. Unfortunately, it didn't make it, but fortunately, the opinion piece made it. And it was so interesting when I went to Abu Dhabi for the awards, right? I remember a friend of mine from Lagos told me, "FIIFI, you're going to win this award." I'm like, Charlie, it's international sports press. Like, it's a privilege to even be there. Like, I made the top 3. So it's a privilege to be there. So I went to Abu Dhabi and I was there for, I think, 4 days. And, I had all these wonderful experiences with fellow finalists and stuff like that. I remember on the day of the awards, I was really nervous. I didn't think I was going to win anyway. But one of the organizers came to me and said, "FIIFI, we can't find your article online. Where is it?" And apparently, because all sports are transitioning to Pulse, we had lost the article online. So I panicked. And so I immediately called my bosses in Ghana and told them the article. So they had to put it online again for them for it to be visible. And then the guy who came to me to ask me for the article, he smiled at me in a very, very weird way. It's like, so I thought, why is this guy smiling at me now? No, he actually knew that I had won the award. So he wanted the article to make a reference to it. So I go in, and I have this Russian friend called Daria Isaeva. I met her at the awards. Very, very nice lady. She tells me, "FIIFI, you're going to win this. Make sure you prepare a speech and say shukran when you win." So we're seated there. And so she takes my iPad and she's like, "When you win this award, I'm going to video you." And true to form, they mentioned the award. It was the first award of the night. FIIFI Anaman from Ghana. Ghana's, so it's like how the Black Stars stabbed the nation in cold blood. And so I found myself walking to the stage. I was very emotional. I couldn't believe it. I had to hug there's a man called Jack Group who was an editor for a publication in Holland. He was on the stage. There was an Arab person on the stage. I greeted them. I made a speech, very emotional. I cried on stage. Yeah, a lot of people still laugh at me till this day. It's like, "Oh, I'm only 21." And yeah, and I told them that, so I have only traveled I've only traveled outside Ghana 3 times. Nairobi, Abu Dhabi, and Nigeria, and Lagos. So, so at that point I had only traveled twice. So I told them that, until Nairobi I had never traveled out of Ghana. And now I found myself at 2 award ceremonies in different countries. So, it just goes to show that wherever you are coming from, however young you are, you can make it. Blah, blah. And so it was a hit. The speech was a hit at the award. And after that, a lot of people wanted to interview this small boy from Ghana, this young Black person. I was the only African among the nominees. All the others were white. And I was the youngest. I was 21 then. All the others were like 40, 50, 35. So it was a very, very big occasion. And a lot of people came to me, "Congratulations." And there was this woman who came to me. She started smothering me with kisses. "Oh, I love you very much. I love you very much. And never change. You're such a humble guy," and stuff like that. Because I cried on stage. Why wouldn't you think I'm humble? Yeah, so that's what happened. Very good experience. But interesting thing. So when I came back to Ghana, it was in December, right? January, the whole of January, I got depressed because I thought what is happening? I'm just 3 years into my trade. I have an international award. Do I deserve it? What is happening in my career? Like, I didn't understand what was going on.
You were questioning
I was questioning myself and stuff like that. I got for a whole month. I was depressed. Did I spend time in Kumasi or Accra? I don't exactly remember, but yeah, for a whole month I was. But I got over it. I soldiered on. So yeah, international award at 21. That was so. A lot of people were saying this is like early career blessings. You know, what if you burn out? You know, there's this story of
whether you can keep up or
whether you can keep up. There's this stereotype. You know, a player like Freddie Adu who hit very early in his life and unfortunately couldn't go on and stuff like that. So there were concerns like that, and I got really scared that, you know what, I'm this young, you know, whiz kid who is going to eventually fizzle out and stuff like that. I think that was one of the reasons why I got depressed. So anyway, I made it through that.
Would you say that's like as young as you were, that was like one of your highlights, like topmost?
Yeah, I mean, Abu Dhabi was certainly one of my most.
Then after that, you came to TV.
Yeah, so Abu Dhabi was 2015. I did TV in 2018, so there was a 3-year difference. TV was a weird thing for me.
What were you doing after? Did you come back to Pulse then?
Okay, so I did Abu Dhabi in 2015. I came back to Pulse in 2016 for service. Yes, so I did service.
So you won that Abu Dhabi hours when you were in school?
Yes, I was in.
How was it like when you brought it back to campus? Like,
yeah, it was interesting. Everybody on my block, Lego Hall, H block, everybody was excited for me. And I remember, you know, the funny thing, when I was going to Nairobi too for the CNN Awards, I literally left a lecture, went to pack my things, and I left for Nairobi. And I came back. My friends were really proud of me and stuff. For the Abu Dhabi one too, I traveled. I think we had finished exams, so I traveled. And I traveled business class. You see, it was the first edition and they wanted to impress. And of course, the people from Abu Dhabi, yes, you know, so it was. And I remember at the airport, like I was going to sit in economy class. I was like, no, business class, you have to go and wait at the lounge, everything. I'm like, hey, Charlie. So, you know, second time traveling, I was in business class. That was an interesting experience. So I came back and I bought a trophy. It was like a pearl form. And the first person, in fact, when I landed, I think the first person I went to see was Kent Mensah, who gave me my big at Gold.com. He was then at Star FM. So from the airport, I went to my brother's office, straight to Kent Mensah's office. I presented the trophy to him. I said, boss, look at what you've done for me and what it has brought me. And he was really, really proud of me. And I was, you know, even more proud of the achievements because he was happy for me. And I later sent the trophy to Dagon. And I showed it to my colleagues. Everyone was happy for me. They took pictures with it and stuff. And I sent it to Kumasi, obviously, to see my mom and my family. And everybody was happy for me. It was a good experience.
How did you end up on TV?
Well, it's another interesting story. So Nuti Fafa Atta, who used to host Football 360 and Sports Extra, he scouts me through a guy called Isaac Darko, who I used to write at All Sports with, or at Pulse with, because All Sports became Pulse. And he told Isaac Darko to call me for an interview. And we met at Holiday Inn. I'll never forget this. And so I'm seated across Nuti. It's like, how was your experience on TV? Like, I'm like, I've never done TV, but I've done some video at Pulse and stuff like that. He's like, oh, he feels like I'm the best fit for Sports Extra. He's followed my career a bit, and he feels like I'll really do a good job at hosting. I'm like, I'm not really sure I can do this. Like, no, you can do it. And so after the meeting, he asked me, so how's your hosting style like? I'm thinking at this point, Anuti doesn't know how my hosting style is. Like, he's going to hire me. So it made me realize that he had a lot of confidence in me even before he saw me host a show. Because he just had the feeling that FIIFI was going to do well on TV. So I started TV in March 2018, and I was really nervous for my first show. I remember I still have my first show on my laptop. One of these days, in fact, recently I watched it again, and I saw how nervous I was, and I really smiled. It was at Kwese, at the Kwese Studios. I did a stand-up, then I didn't sit for that show, and I think one of my first stories was a boxing story, and I messed up in terms of, you know, remembering the details. And so it kicked off from there. So I gained a lot of experience, because before then I had some how do you call it, a rehearsal, right? So I was a bit acquainted with the camera and everything, but you know, it was difficult in the first few months. I think I did close to 300 episodes in the end for Sports Extra. And I was really proud of what we were able to achieve. Isaac Darko, Kelvin Huapwe, my producers, Nutifafa himself encouraging me, and yeah, it was a good team, a good show, and I really enjoyed it. So I started on Football 360 on Joy Prime. I did it for a year, and yeah, I did it for a year, and I walked away from TV. This was in September 2020.
Yeah, you look like a man who's not scared of saying goodbye to.
Well, I mean, at that point, I had always planned to leave TV because I thought I didn't have the substance for TV. Very weird. I didn't feel like I was doing it right, even though everybody was saying, FIIFI, you see on TV that you inspire me. I had a lot of young people send me messages. There was this young person whose parents came to see me on the show. They were like, our boy adores you and stuff like that. Like it was a whole roller coaster of people admiring me and stuff like that. But I still felt that I wasn't good enough. So I had always wanted to walk off TV, and I also didn't love the spotlight, right? It's like everybody knows your attention and everything, because I love to be in my own corner. So because of that, I walked away from TV. But at that same point, I had another job offer for a relatively low profile job, which was going to pay more. I had to say, let me put TV aside. This was in September 2020. So that's the job that I'm doing now. It's for a media foundation called TEF. What we basically do is anti-corruption and human rights issues. So yeah, I've been doing that since 2020. So 2021, 2022, close to 3 years.
So that you don't write. It's not.
So I've been writing on the side. So
I mean
I write. I write at TEF. I edit articles. I supervise.
Oh, okay. So it's still media.
It's still media, but it's not mainstream.
Yeah, behind the scenes. So I think that's great. Now let's talk about the recent book that got launched.
Yeah.
Would you describe it as your biggest?
Definitely. I mean, to author a book is big enough, but to author a book about CK Gyamfi, trust me, no bigger honor. No bigger honor. So yes, the story is that I did an interview with CK Gyamfi in 2013, and his children or his sons loved it. They said, "We love your style of writing. Get on the project." So that's how I got on the project. But before then, I had met CK Gyamfi in 2009 when I wanted to become a coach, and my dad took me to go see him. So that was the history with me and CK Gyamfi. So yes, I got on the project in 2014. I started writing in 2015. Unfortunately, CK Gyamfi died along the line. So we were supposed to launch the book in 2015 to honor his legacy during his funeral. It didn't happen. So in the ensuing years, for I think close to 6 to 7 years, it never happened. And for each of these years, I had to rewrite the manuscript. So on and off, it took 7 years of work to have the book published. And it took the life out of me, trust me. I gave it everything, blood, sweat, tears. You see, I gave it, like, I have never worked so hard on a project because I felt like this is CK Gyamfi. I mean, if you can't do justice to CK Gyamfi, what else are you going to do? CK Gyamfi is the biggest football personality in our history. So I really, really felt like, and I got on the project when I was like 20, 21 thereabouts. So you see the confidence that was reposed in me, a young writer.
Yeah.
There were so many people who could have done this project, so many people, but they said, we want you to do it. So a lot of pressure, a lot of responsibility. And I was really privileged to have been the one chosen to do the story. I'm like, up till now, like, how did it end up in my hands? Because this book had been in the production line for years, since the 70s. I wasn't even born in the 70s. And it did a whole trip through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and met me in 2013. That's like, it was probably meant to be.
So walk me through how you're able to, because obviously there are certain things in the book that you are not born. How are you?
See, the book spans 1929 to 1982. I wasn't born by then, so everything that happened in the book, I didn't live to witness it.
So how are you able to put the book together? Like, talk me through being able to get the knowledge and then put it on paper.
Yeah, so basically there was a manuscript, so that helped. There was an existing manuscript by CK, very old manuscript. It was typewritten.
So he was writing it himself?
Yeah, he was writing it himself. I think he narrated it to a typewriter, probably. I don't know whether he typed it himself, but like I said, very old manuscript, where he was like, oh, I was born here, I did this, I scored a goal, I joined the club, I did this, I did that. So it's very simple.
Whoa, so it's like he was documenting
his own life. So it's like a diary, sort of.
I see.
So I got hold of that manuscript. It was like 57,000 words. And they wanted me to turn it into a book. So at the end of the process, it was going on 160,000 words from my end, because I had to do a lot of research. So it's like the manuscript was a skeleton, and I had to put flesh on the skeleton, and it took a lot of research. Like, if you are lazy, you cannot do this kind of work, because you have to go to graphic archives, go through papers in the 50s, 51, 52, 60s. Yeah, it was really difficult.
Yeah, book that took you more than 5 years.
Yeah, close to 7 actually. So yes, I did the research. I talked to a few people. Like I always recounted in interviews, he was really old at the point that I met him, but we became very good friends, right? He really liked me. I loved him as well. And we did interviews at his home. And so what I was trying to do was to get a feel of his personality when I interviewed him. Not necessarily to use the information that he was giving me, because it was like I can't really remember a lot, but I can speak on a few things. So I was picking his emotions, trying to inhabit his character, so that I could be in character. When I'm writing. Yeah, so like I had to be CK Gyamfi when I was writing. Of course, I own the words and the style, but the personality was all CK Gyamfi. So that was it. Just talking to him, getting a feel of his emotion. But the style was mine, like I said. So I had to do all this gymnastics with the words, and with the chapters and the plotting and the flow and all these literary factors, artistic factors that was involved in the book. So yeah, in the end, I guess it turned out well. If it had been published in 2015, I don't think it would have been as good. You see, so every year it got better, because I was doing more research, I was doing rewriting, I was scrap some chapters, putting new ones, every single year. And so I'm glad and I thank God that it had to take that long, because good things take time, and I've experienced that saying, in the flesh. So I can say good things take time. Trust me, and it will happen at some point. It will happen. We can wait and wait and wait. It was like, FIIFI will be published in 2016.
So this is what we're doing, and maybe it will help you.
Yeah.
Let's say 2015. If they don't publish it,
they don't
go for it, and you better it.
Yes. So every year that's what I was doing. Okay. Yes. Every single year.
On the day that it was being launched, I remember you sent me an invite. I went for the program, you were not there.
And other people said, FIIFI, you like hiding so much so that your own launch, you didn't come. No, I didn't plan on not coming. So people close to me know the story. Unfortunately, I fell ill. And in fact, for most of 2022, that same illness sort of kept me on the sidelines. But I think for about 6 months. So if you notice, I was off social media, I was off like everywhere. So yeah, I got sick, unfortunately. So I missed them. In fact, on the day of the launch, my sickness sort of reached a crescendo. And yeah, unfortunately. And I really regretted missing the launch. Well, not regret as in being disappointed, because if you say regret, it's like you could have done it and you didn't do it. But I was disappointed because I missed the launch. And I imagine how it went, I would imagine maybe I would have made a speech, and I think about it all the time, like Charlie, the launch, and there were a lot of great people at the launch, former footballers, journalists, veteran journalists, Charlie, was really disappointing.
I don't want to be emotional, but in another way, it's fun too, that's kind of big man that didn't show up, and everybody's looking for the writer, and you are not, like, it's like, see, when they finish, rappers finish performing, they drop the mic.
I guess you can see like that, but
you finish, then you drop the mic.
Because I've always had that thing where I drop a piece and I vanish. I drop a piece and I vanish. It's not because so I like to be a unicorn at best and a grey ghost at worst. A grey ghost is like a snow leopard, right? It's rarely seen. When you go to the Himalayas, grey ghosts are there. They call it the grey ghost or the ghost cat. So you barely spot them. So I've always been like that. It's like I don't want to be seen a lot. And that's why I left TV, in fact. Now, so I do pieces and I'm not prolific, right? So I do all this research. I drop like a 7,000 word piece and I get so tired, I go off. So between the last piece that I did on Steve Bloche in May 2021, it took me 2 years to do the Babaya piece. So you can see, like, obviously I have a mainstream job that pays me, so it helps to have a mainstream job. So kids out there, when you want to do the kind of stuff that I do, you have to have a backup, because you can't be living and be doing articles every 2 years and expect to make it in terms of financials. It's very, very difficult.
We've talked about writing, but in your TV interviews, I think one of your interviews that went viral, like a lot of people have not paid attention to it that much, is your interview with Anas.
Yeah, Anas interview.
The interview that
The
you managed
famous
to,
Anas interview.
yeah, that you managed to get Anas to show his face.
Yeah. So Anas actually told me, I'm going to show my face in this interview because it's you. So the story is that we had met before, right, through an acquaintance of ours, like a mutual acquaintance of ours. So he knew me.
But when you met him, he was
he's always in his beaded mask.
Oh.
So no, but first time I met him, he wasn't in his mask.
But you saw his face.
Oh, I mean, people who know him know his face. Yeah, so it's not a problem. It's like you. I know you, but when you go in public, you put a beaded mask.
So you know Anas.
I won't say I know him, but I've seen
like when you see Anas.
I mean, yeah, I would know. I think so. Unless maybe he's still using prosthetics.
Unless maybe that one you saw too is.
Yeah, that's just a joke.
But like, yeah,
yeah, you know the story. So he said, "No, I'm going to show my face on this interview." So I was really like happy about it. And before we had gone in, I think Michael J had come from TV3, done his interview. So he was doing a round of interviews. So he would do this, do that, do that. So on my own, he said, "I'm going to show my face." And he had done that on a BBC interview with Sami Darko before. So I knew how it was going to go. We did the interview. I interviewed him on number 12. We had a very interesting conversation, a bit controversial at times. So at the end, I was like, "Oh, show us your face." Like, yeah. So he takes off his beads and he reveals his face. A lot of people have asked me since then, is that Anas' real face? Or he's put it out there, so decide.
Is that the face you saw when you met him the first time?
I can't comment on that. Let me plead the fifth on this particular one. So yeah, he's put it out there. That's the mystery about Anas. Like he lets you decide how to see him. I always say, if you saw Anas, if I was Anas, if I were Anas, and I told you right now I'm Anas, how would you believe it's me? You've not seen my face before.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's like that.
So how was it like going to interview such like a mysterious?
Of course, there's a lot of protocol. You go there, he's not there. People moving around. Charlie, he's coming. Then he enters with all his like people and with this beaded mask. So it's a very exciting piece. Anas is coming. Yeah, it was a very interesting. I really enjoyed that bit, interviewing him, seeing him, and stuff like that. And he's a very intelligent man.
Would you say you developed interest for writing because you grew up in a home of teachers?
I think I developed interest in writing because I loved to watch action movies as a child. And I love to reproduce such things, visuals, through words. So I write all these stories about, Shao Kahn and blah, blah. And
how did you get the inspiration? Like, how can you be a good writer? Because, see, the writing you do, how do you get that from a kid who likes watching movies?
Yeah, you see, my writing evolved. If you see some of my early blog posts, you laugh at some of my expressions and stuff like that. And I used to be, like I said, very ambitious. I'll use all these big words and stuff like that. Kent will tell me, if you relax, bring it down to earth, that kind of thing. So I've learned a lot along the way. And my writing is a product of a lot of years of correction, of teaching, of mentorship, of just learning, you see. So yeah, it has evolved. Like I said, when I was a child, it was all about, there was a book that I wrote as a child called Evil Sequence. I wrote in the notebook, and it has this action thing about, this guy who was a king and his brother wanted to overthrow him, and he had a son, and they fought and somebody stabbed someone. That kind of stuff. I really loved the chaos of action movies, and so I would reproduce it through it. I wrote a lot of stories. At a point, I was even writing telenovelas. So you see, I used to write a lot. Like, I was really prolific as a child, you see. And recently, somebody reminded me. So I linked up with some of my JSS mates. We were having like these nostalgic conversations, and one of them was like, "Hey, FIIFI, you were always going to become a writer. Because when we were in school, you were seated by me and you used to write all these stories, telenovelas and action." I had even forgotten I used to do that with JSS, but they reminded me about it. And one of my friends also said it was football, because you used to write letters to Barcelona and Liverpool and stuff, and we'd be laughing at you in class. I had forgotten about all of this. But yeah, I guess I've always loved football and I've always liked writing. So put it together and we have it.
Now you've co-authored a book. You've won an award. What else? As Saturday would say.
I want to keep writing. I love long form, and I love writing that is cinematic, right? That explores the limitless ways in which art can be explored. Love storytelling that is innovative and that is ambitious. So, yeah, it's originally the CK Gyamfi book was like 500 pages, over 500 pages. It was edited down to 400. Like I said, ambition, a lot of flowery languages and stuff, but the editor sort of tapered it down. So I've always wanted to do pieces that are different. You saw the Babaya piece. It's not something that you normally read anywhere. So yes, I've always wanted to do such stuff. So I guess that's the trajectory I want to go. I'm working on another book, so there's that. In fact, two books. Yeah, one of them is not particularly going well, but I pray that I'm able to finish. The other I've not really done much.
Is it also about the football legend?
So one is on two football clubs. That's all I can reveal at this point. Okay. And the other
football clubs in Ghana.
Football clubs in Ghana. So, and the other is on a big story that dominated the headlines recently. That's what I can say.
But it's a book.
It's a book. Yeah. The two of them are books.
Is it your personal project or also?
One is a project I'm doing for someone, and the clubs one is for me.
Okay, you are writing a book about a club.
About two clubs.
Two clubs in Ghana.
Yes, in Ghana.
Then I know them. We all know them. We all know the clubs, and we are hoping that it comes out and we'll be able to. We all know.
Well, I can't say if that's what you're saying. Then yeah. So yeah, there's that and there's that.
Oh,
we'll see how it goes.
We are just wishing you the best of luck and never stop writing.
Thank you.
Let me ask you this big question: does writing pay? Does it pay?
Yeah, be very careful with my answer here. So in Ghana, no. So for the CK Gyamfi project, for instance, if you win this scout, you take block. I don't take any block. I mean, it's a passion project. I learned about passion projects from a publisher at Savannah Publishing also. So I went to her saying, I have the CK Gyamfi manuscript. Please buy it and publish for us. She told me, no. These kind of books, they are passion projects, they are legacy projects where, the person just wants to tell his story. So he even pays for the publishing. So that's what happened. We paid a publisher called Digibooks to publish a book for us. So it's not like one of those books where it is acquired by a publisher like you do abroad. Like you write a book, a manuscript, and publishers bid for it, and then they take care of the cost, they pay you. No. So I was given a token for the CK Gyamfi. In fact, I wasn't going to charge them anything, but they said, no, we want to give you money. So they gave me something small for the boys. So
something small that can buy a house.
Oh no, it can't buy a house. Come on, buy something small. It can buy stuff.
I feel you.
Yeah, it can do a lot of shopping. As it was said, this recent announced video, there was money handed out to a guy. I don't want to mention names, and then he was like, "It can do a lot of shopping." the money can do a lot of shopping. So yes, writing. I mean, I write for my blog. I don't get paid for it. I write pieces that take months to churn out, but I don't get paid for it. I've not monetized my Medium page. I've not monetized my website, my blog. So that I get nothing from. Like I said, I have a mainstream job that pays me, so that helps. Hopefully, in the future, I'll get hired by an international organization that will have the patience to wait for me to produce articles like that. Right? But until then, yeah, it doesn't pay. But hey, if you have the passion for it, you can still push.
But you advise that you have a side job.
Yeah, have a side job. Definitely have a side job. Because writing, trust me. I mean, journalism in general in Ghana is it's a strange profession. Unfortunately, that is so. But hey,
thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed this, and I should mention some names at this point. People who have put me on: Kent Mensah put me on my first website gig. Gary Al Smith, George Patrick Bediako, All Sports, Eddie Micah Jr., Quabs Hansen, YFM, ETV. Made my first appearances on TV and radio in Accra. Nana Asante Samuels, formerly of Questa TV, he's a producer. He put me on TV in terms of documentaries for the first time. And Thomas Freeman Yeboah, the late Thomas Freeman, was very close to me. Have a really
such a good guy.
soft spot. Yeah, such a good guy. Soft spot for him. Yeah, a couple of other people that I'm forgetting. So there's Nuti Fafata as well, who put me on TV. So a lot of people. Julia Bewa, who is one of my favorite people. I think she's the closest to me in the media, probably. I'm really fond of her as well. Yeah, so many other people. If I don't mention your name, I'm very sorry, but yeah, everybody has
just like how the
me.
musicians.
Yeah, I mean, look. So yeah, a lot of people have inspired.
And all the fans. You never had training.
Never had training, yes, in journalism and in writing.
Really?
Yes, no.
Just
self-taught.
Yeah, that's when we talk about people have talents. I think that's your talent. Would you say that's your talent?
God given. Yeah,
and that's it. Danyamiasi means we say goodbye.
Your mom pioneer.